So this is interactive, you guys.
Yes, we do.
I hate Zoom classes because I like energy. Okay, so
Yeah.
worst case scenario, or even just moderate, right? The middle case, that's a huge difference from what it was in the past in that first graph. Now, if you go to the second graph over here, this is done based on regions, right? And obviously we're the West region, which is the last graph. So if you look at that, they're saying for the second quarter of 2021, this is where it should be. That's a huge difference. And in my opinion, we haven't seen a huge wave of pre-foreclosures or foreclosures since 2008, 2009. But it is going to happen, and I think you need to be educated on what to do. So let's go on to the next screen. A lot of people, Zane, obviously not you, but a lot of people don't even know what a foreclosure is, or they don't know what a notice of default is. And you guys, when you go into your MLS and you look on the what is it, the real list report, if you go all the way down, it shows you if there is a notice of default filed, if the property is in pre-foreclosure. Pre-foreclosure simply means they have started the process and the recording of payments being missed so that they can take action and take back the property. That's in simple terms. If you want to read this, the slide is going to be sent to you. You can Google this too, just to figure out what the heck a notice of default is. How long does it take for a bank to actually pull back the property? All of those things are things you should educate yourself on.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any specific questions on this part right here, on what a pre-foreclosure is and notice of default and that stuff?
I think, what would be great to know exactly, let's face it, it's 3 months and 21 days before things start kind of getting going. Is that correct? With trust, with a,
Yeah.
with, the type of mortgage situation that we have in California. Okay.
Right.
So after that 3 months and 21 days, it would be nice to be able to see something that shows, okay, on day 22 per se, this is what, what happens at that point. And then beyond that point, it's kind of good to, have an idea of the whole timeline.
Sure. So the timeline is going to be different for everybody. And Zane, you can chime in on this if you'd like. You guys, a bank has typically, I think it's 180 days to take back the property, right? There's a time frame that they have to give the homeowner the right to get caught up on their loan, and they're getting notified that they're missing their payments. A bank though, and I've seen this, and Zane, you've been in this market too. Some banks have allowed people to stay in the home longer, right? I mean, not every bank shuts down on them and takes back the property immediately whenever they can. So in the past, I know like in 2008, 2009, people were staying in their home. Sometimes I had a friend that was in his home for over a year without paying. So not everybody has a foreclosure immediately. Banks do have some fluctuation as far as, and they try to control what they're doing too. So there is a traditional by default, the timeline that it's supposed to happen, but it doesn't always go that way, if that's what you're asking. And everybody's loan is different. So some people have their payments put on the end. Some people are getting loan modifications. All of these things are happening.
Yeah. Okay.
But we are going to go, we will look at graphs then at that point, maybe 3 months from now, and say, okay, where were we and where are we now? What does that look like? Let's see, I keep adding people. Make sense? So I'm going to go back to sharing this screen real quick because we're going to talk about a few things. Let's see. Sorry. Okay, so understanding what a notice of default means and what a pre-foreclosure is when you guys are talking to clients, that's going to be important. And then what is a short sale? I had an agent yesterday ask me, are all pre-foreclosures short sales? The answer is no, not at all. However, there are short sales, and it's important because they kind of go hand in hand a lot of the time. So it's important to understand what a short sale is, what a pre-foreclosure is, and the fact that they don't always go hand in hand. For those of you that don't understand what a short sale is, it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It is going to sell the property. but there's not enough equity to fulfill the loan that the loan that they pulled out on the home. So it's underneath, right? Which means the value isn't there. Some people walk away from their home whenever they're upside down on the mortgage. Some people want to sell it and do a short sale. There's so many different situations. We're going to lightly touch on it, but one thing that's really important to know whenever you guys are talking to people is if it is a short sale, I think there's only 12 states, but we are one of the 12 states that are non-recourse state. What that means is your client will almost always ask you the difference of what I can't pay back. Even if I sell my home, let's say the home is worth $500,000, I can only sell it for $300,000. That $200,000, is the bank going to come after me and sue me for the difference? Am I liable to pay it? All of these things, am I going to be taxed on it? These questions come up. The answer is no. If the bank agrees to the short sale, they are not liable for the difference. We are a non-recourse state. That's important to know. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you guys have any questions on that?
You know, I did have a short sale at one time, and this was a few years back, where although no, the bank was not going to come after the seller, what they did try to do with my buyer, okay, after we had everything accepted and we were in escrow, this was with Bank of America, and they were out of North Carolina. They turned around and tried to cancel the transaction because they said, technically, as far as we're concerned, you know, we should be getting a lot more money. So we want to try and, you know, pull out at this point. Now, I threatened them with specific performance. And I also reminded them, or they didn't realize that my buyer was one of their senior vice presidents. So at that point, yeah, they pulled back, and we did, in fact, you know, close the escrow, but they were saying, you know, we're not recouping all of our money, and the market there is actually quite a bit better than what this is being sold for. So, you know, yeah, we want, although it went for like $285,000, we should be getting a lot more, and we want more. So they did attempt to do that.
Well, can I ask you, was that your first short sale?
Yeah.
Okay, did you get a letter of approval before you opened escrow? Because the way the process is, you actually can't accept an amount before the bank accepts it. So if you as an agent didn't know that and you accepted the amount, opened escrow, and then the bank was like, whoa, 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 this isn't enough, then that makes sense. But the actual protocol to a short sale is you can't, actually your seller's kind of irrelevant. The seller no longer selects the buyer. The bank is the only one that can approve the buyer that comes forward and the amount. Does that make sense? And if there's two lenders, they both have to agree to it. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's the first lender. You want both to be in agreement, right? But the first lender is the one in control. So you want to make sure that you have an approval, and that comes in writing before you ever open escrow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
And I was on the buyer side. So yeah, I was on the buyer side.
Oh, then the listing, this is why it's so important to know these things, you guys. The listing agent might have been uneducated on the process and have been trying to negotiate a short sale, open escrow, and then try to get the bank to approve. That's not the way it's done.
I mean, we still closed at what we were supposed to have closed at.
Yeah.
But I think it was only because of who my client was that it was one of their, you know, high-end employees per se.
Yeah. I just did one in December, and it was actually pretty smooth. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. Okay. But the next thing I wanted to talk about, you guys, is something that's kind of common sense, right? Let's go back to where we were. Topic of discussion I want to talk about is the tone and the dialogue with a pre-foreclosure. When you guys think about somebody that is unable to make their mortgage payment and has fallen behind, what are the things that come to mind?
Unemployment.
Okay, go ahead. What else? Okay, shoot them out. I'm going to help you guys. Would you think that it's accurate to say they're going to be embarrassed? They're going to be ashamed?
Yeah, of course.
They're going to feel judged. They're probably also, which I see most often, they're in denial.
I don't know
right?
about that.
all of these things are things that you're going to be combating with people whenever you try to have the dialogue of, hey, I see your home is in default. I'd like to help you. They're going to go, what are you talking about? No, I'm not. That's going to be 90% of the reaction you will get. And Zane and Veronica, I saw you shaking your head. A lot of people are in denial about the fact that their home is in the process of being taken back by the bank, right? So whenever a stranger approaches them, and that's what you are, and says, hey, I know you haven't made your payments, even if you're not saying it like that, that's how they're going to interpret it. And it's a very embarrassing state to be in, especially if they're, go ahead, Zane.
No, I'm listening.
Okay. Especially if they've had this home, they've been making their payments, and all of a sudden they've had some hardship, and maybe they've lost their job, maybe they've lost, whatever it is, lost their spouse, whatever it could be. A lot of people are not comfortable disclosing the fact that they are in pre-foreclosure and default on their property. So sometimes what you're going to encounter whenever you're dealing with these is the person that finally wants your help whenever it's at last minute. Like literally they've procrastinated, they are going to auction next day, they are finally like, okay, this is reality, fuck, they're going to take back my home and I'm going to be out on the curb tomorrow. That's what happens. That's been my experience, at least.
Yeah, they've ignored at least a couple hundred letters by that time.
Yes.
Many unopened, all offering help.
Yes.
And their first thought is, how can you help me stay in my home longer?
Yes, and that's where you should come from, you guys. So I love that you just said that. So the whole purpose of this class is there going to be business opportunity? Hands down, yes. However, I want you guys to understand that this is a very sensitive topic, and you should always be coming from a place of service and empathy, right? I don't want to say sympathy, because not everybody wants you to feel sorry for them. They're looking for you to be able to relate to them, not judge them, and come from a place of trying to solve their problem. And I'm going to tell you now, majority of the time, they don't want to sell their home. They've been making their payments. They've raised their kids there, whatever the situation is. And you should come from a place of trying to help them stay in their home. Now, the reality of the fact is a lot of the times they can't, because even if you negotiate a loan modification, or they do a bankruptcy, or whatever we're going to start talking about right now, sometimes the situation is they can't make the payments moving forward, even if they stay in the home. There's ways to get creative, and we will talk about that, to allow somebody to stay in their home and maybe have an investor buy it, but rent it back to them. There's all kinds of things we can talk about. But I want you to come from a place of service. I want you to realize the dialogue that you're going to have with somebody. It's not going to be, oh, yes, hi, realtor, help me. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? You don't know my life. I'm not in default. That's wrong. Click. And then you have to come from a place of staying persistent, letting them know you're there to educate them and help them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Very much.
Okay. Okay, so let me go back to sharing the screen real quick. Let's see. Okay, so that's going to be the tone and the dialogue when you're talking to a pre-foreclosure. It's going to be a lot of resistance. It's going to be a lot of denial. It's going to be, they're really not going to want, sometimes, majority of the time, not all the time, they're going to not want to deal with you until they absolutely need you. So it's important for you as a realtor to know how to prevent a foreclosure and explore all options to help the homeowner stay in their home, right? Which is crazy, because we're in the job of networking and selling homes. I always say we're not in the job of selling homes. We are in the job of networking, right? Lead generation. But we should also come from a place of service and education. That's all it is. Sometimes the best option is to keep somebody in their home. And guess what happens whenever you actually get them to stay in their home? Do you not think you have the biggest raving fan out there? Somebody that's going to refer everybody underneath the moon to you that they meet, because you actually helped them achieve what they were trying to do and they couldn't do it. So obviously there's options. A few of them is, of course, a loan modification. Understanding what a bank will require for a loan modification. You guys, let's use some common sense real quick. What do you guys think whenever you think of what a bank would want to see if they're considering a loan modification to allow this person to actually stay in the home?
Their ability to pay.
Their ability to pay. And what else?
Well, they ended up showing a Fannie Mae 1003, a loan application to show that they can't afford it. So the bank's going to want that same form filled out showing they can't afford it, which is
Right.
like bank statements and.
Right. So it's kind of a contradiction. So it's if you have a client and they are still making their payments, but they've had hardship, let's say maybe one of the spouses lost their job and they've been staying current on their payments, but they know they can't sustain that and they're kind of in panic mode. Do you think a bank is going to negotiate with them if they are not behind on their payments?
Well, they are.
Most
will.
won't. Most won't.
No, they won't.
Most won't. Because
Okay.
you're showing you can make the payment. So they don't care about making you comfortable. They care about the fact you have been making the payments, you're current. So what is the real motive of them to negotiate with you? They won't always do it. So they want to typically the way you want to structure this with your client is say, if you're killing yourself making your payments, stop. Show them that your income has changed. And this takes a lot of prep, you guys. So you're going to educate your client, show them that your income has changed, provide the hardship letter, explain your situation, right? You want to show them that you haven't been able to upkeep the house because you've been struggling with the payments you have been making. So maybe you have to dramatize how bad the house is looking because you're not keeping it up. Banks don't like that because that's their asset. Okay. And then you also want to make sure that you haven't been making your payment and you want to say, I can no longer afford that payment. However, I do have the ability to make this payment. I do have income coming in. It's no longer what it was, but can we modify my loan? Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
That's usually the strongest standpoint that you're going to have whenever it comes to renegotiating your loan terms. I'm not talking about a pandemic where a lot of banks are just doing it to help people. In a traditional reality, that's what they're going to want to see. So if your client is current on their payments, doesn't put them in a good place to do a loan modification. If there's no hardship, there's no real motivation for a bank to say, yes, we'll work with you. So those things, and sometimes you as a realtor have to teach and coach your client to stage it that way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let me see what this chat says real quick. I'm sorry. Hold on, you guys. So true. Okay. Let's see. Let's go back to the slide real quick. Okay. So loan modification is one thing to consider. File bankruptcy. This, you guys, I like to use this as a last resort. If you think about this, I've had literally within an hour of an auction taking place, I've had it be able to be stopped by filing bankruptcy. This is your client running down to the courthouse and filing bankruptcy. They cannot take back the property once that's been filed. Does that make sense? That is the last resort. You don't want somebody doing that if they don't have to, but that will stop an auction. Do you guys have questions on that? No, okay. Or yes? Okay. And then obviously to stop a pre-foreclosure, if somebody is getting notices that they haven't been paying, their bank is going to take back the property, you can sell the home traditionally. If there is equity, which a lot of homes in California, there might be equity, right? They might be in a place where they can sell. That's a traditional sale. You have to put in there that it's a pre-foreclosure and default, whatever it is. But if there's equity, there's no reason that they can't sell and get out of the property. However, most people are not going to want that option when they're talking to you. And that's usually why they give the agent the pushback. They're like, oh, you just want to sell my home. I'm trying to keep my home. So you can get creative. And there's a lot of things that you can do. You can have somebody, let me take this off to share because I like to see your guys' face. You can have an investor come in. I used to come in as an investor and tell people, look, I get it. You want to stay in your home. Let me purchase the home with all cash. You can stay in the home because your kids are there, they've lived there, they've grown up there, and you can rent it back to me. That's a dangerous thing to do, given the fact that if they're not paying their mortgage, odds are they're not going to pay you as a landlord.
Exactly.
However, there are situations where they can, and they were just behind, and now they can't afford the late payments, the fines and fees that have been tagged on. They can't afford all of that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you can be a savior and bring in an investor that's looking to do rent back to them and allow them to actually stay in the home. And maybe there's special terms where they're in there only until they find another property. I mean, there's just creative things, you guys. The cool thing about when a market shifts and we turn into the pre-foreclosures and foreclosures, you're really going to have to learn the creative side of real estate. There's private money, there's investors, there's hard money loans that a person can get in order to keep the property. There's, especially when there's equity to play with, okay? So do not feel like the only answer is to put the home on the market and sell it for them. Sometimes they do want to stay there, and you should try to help that happen. Anything you want to add to that, Zane? Because I know you've got some kind of experience in this realm. No? Okay.
Oh,
I'm good. That was very thorough.
Okay. Let's go back to the screen real quick. Okay. Short sale. Not everybody is a short sale, but sometimes you're going to run into the place where there's a little bit of, there's equity, but there's not enough to pay commissions, or there's very little equity and it barely makes it. So it ends up being negative, right? The cost of selling the home. So, and then next slide, you guys, we're going to talk about REO and asset managers, however, and how to become a listing agent with banks. It's important for you as an agent to understand short sales. It's not a big, ugly, scary thing. Can it be? Yes, it can be messy. It's time consuming. It's a longer process. However, if you master the art, it's a beautiful thing to understand, and it's a great niche to be in, because majority of agents in today's market are not educated on it. They haven't been in a market where they've ever had to do a short sale. Most agents that have been licensed less than 10 years have never had to master this. So you've got an advantage if you take the time to truly just understand it. And maybe your first short sale, you partner up with somebody that does have experience that can coach you on it. But definitely don't walk away from a client just because it's a short sale and you don't know. I got one in December, and it was simply from another agent that said, "Hey, Christy, I've been in the business 2 years. I know nothing about the short sale. I'm going to give it to you because I know you'll help her. And maybe I could just be, you can coach me on it." She goes, "I don't even need a referral fee. Just teach me the freaking process." And you know, I was glad that she actually came from a place of actually wanting to help the person and admitted that she didn't know what she was doing, but she wanted to know. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing. You've got to put on a different hat when you're thinking of a short sale. What is going to make a bank say, "Yes, I am willing to allow you to sell this home for less than what you owe us on the loan for the terms that we have in writing"? What do you think they would want to see, right? There's a lot of things that you're going to have beforehand. You're going to have a listing agreement from the actual owner. And then you're also going to have a consent form, which is in zip forms. So hold on, let me admit, Ho-Chung. So the bank, to do a short sale, is going to want to see the listing agreement, a consent form, because a lender won't talk to you about that client's loan without you having a consent form. Does that make sense? You can't contact the lender and say, "Oh, I'm calling because my seller, Stephanie so-and-so, asked me to sell her home." They're going to laugh at you and hang up and say, we can't talk to you or disclose anything about the loan. So the consent form in zip forms is what your client signs that you send into the bank that allows you to have the correspondence with them as a point of contact. Okay. And then what you're going to want to do is you're packaging this for the bank to say, "Look, the owner is telling me they're willing to sell. Here's the consent form. Here's a letter explaining the distress that my client is under." And you guys, coach your client on this. Sometimes you don't have to because it's that bad of a situation, but the letter should be explaining everything horrible that has happened, why and how they can no longer make their payments, and the fact that they want to sell, right? It's going to be, "My husband has cancer," because these are the stories you guys will get. "My husband has cancer," or "My husband left me for another woman and he was the main provider. I have no income as a spouse and he's nowhere to be found." This was actually a situation I was in December. "My husband left me and my 3 kids. He was our main provider. He's nowhere to be found and he has a warrant in the state of California for his arrest. I cannot make my payment. I have to sell." And she literally showed her bank statements saying, "I have no money. I was not the breadwinner. I'm looking for a job, but I can't guarantee that I will find a job." So you send this with a letter of distress, and then you make it sound bad, okay? If it's not bad when they write it, you coach them to rewrite it. And then, I'm serious, you guys. And then
this is Hollywood, so.
yeah.
Well said.
Usually you won't have to do too much coaching because they are in a bad place. If you guys, the last thing somebody doesn't pay is their mortgage. So what you're going to find too is usually the home is in bad condition. Why is that? Because usually they'll let their lights go off before they not pay their mortgage. Usually they won't do the lawn in the front before they not pay their mortgage. Usually they're not going to fix the paint, the plumbing, all of these things to keep their home up because they can barely pay their mortgage, you guys. So the home is going to look bad and it is in distress.
Yeah.
So the other item is you're going to take pictures of the home and you're going to paint this picture as a realtor of how horrible of a condition this home is in. In other words, it's not even worth the $500,000 loan that they gave you. We have to short sell it because the condition that it's in, it is horrible. You're going to take close-up pictures, far-away pictures, whatever you have to do to dramatize it. There's a hole in the wall because the spouse has gotten fights all the time. In fact, the toilet is missing because whatever. I mean, you take bad pictures. You can even get contractors to say the plumbing is shot or the water is leaking. There's water damage. Whatever it is, you're going to send pictures with this. And then what you're also going to do, oh, we skipped one, the CMA.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, a CMA. Just so you guys know the verbiage too, write this down if you want. Banks call it a BPO. It is not called a CMA with a bank. It's called a broker's price opinion, BPO report. So in your cloud CMA, you can actually change the title of it to where it no longer says CMA. It'll switch to BPO. And it's the exact same thing though. You guys, you're providing comps that support the value that you're presenting. And what you want to do is be a little strategic with this if you have to. Pull the distressed properties, pull the low properties to support the value that you're saying, hey, it's a short sale. I have to sell it for $300,000 because it's not worth the $500,000, right? I'm not saying it's going to be that gap, but you guys get the picture. So the CMA needs to be strategic for the bank that's actually looking at it. Because if they see high comps, they're not going to want to approve it. They're going to say, well, we think we can get more. Why are you telling us we have to list it for $300,000? Right? Whatever it is. Okay. And then you're going to market the home and the bank has to approve the offer. So let's say, I'm going to give you guys an example of the home I did in December. You took pictures, you sent the letter of distress, you've got the consent form, I got the listing agreement. I finally got the banks to say, okay, we are now in approval for a short sale. I had to ask them, okay, how do you as a seller, because now the banks are really the seller. My seller is out of the picture. She has to sign documents, but she's no longer making the decisions. The bank is. So then I had to say, how do you guys want these offers to be presented? The asset manager literally said, Christy, we don't want to see, if 5 offers come in, we only want the highest offer. We're not negotiating with everybody. Give us the highest offer. And a lot of the times they don't want to do countering back and forth. They want somebody that's serious and that gives a solid number. So the bank is the one that approves the number. This is why it takes time sometimes, you guys, because you're going back and forth with the bank versus just your client. So sometimes, depending on how busy they are, they're slow to get back to you. So it takes a buyer that has a lot of patience to understand that escrow might take longer than what's expected. Okay. So, and a bank is also going to want to see that they're not going to entertain options to fix the home. Obviously, they're going to say it is as is. We as a bank are not going to go in there and fix the roof for you and fix the plumbing and fix the walls. It doesn't happen. Okay.
Right.
So it takes a special buyer to pair up with a pre-foreclosure sometimes, or a short sale, specifically a short sale under a pre-foreclosure. Does that stuff make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
So I want you to realize the hat that you put on when you're dealing with your client that's under this stressful situation, and the feedback that you're most likely going to get, which is resistance because they're ashamed and they're embarrassed that you even know their business. So they're going to deny. And then the hat that you have to put on whenever you actually have a client and maybe you do have to sell it, right? After exploring all options.
I think it also though sounds like you have to really, really manage expectations to the max here.
In what department, in what aspect?
Well, with regards to what you were saying, with your client, well, with the client, with your client, the seller per se, just making sure that they understand that this can take a long time and that, yeah, bank has to approve the offer. This is not going to be something that's going to take place quickly.
Right, right.
But you know,
the cool thing is this, you're right. And you have to manage the expectations, but you guys, once a pre-foreclosure, there's a pre-foreclosure and a short sale has been approved, even though there's that auction date, your client as a seller is panicking because she's like, fuck, we're getting closer and closer to this auction date. I'm going to have to be out on the curb. Sorry, I cursed you guys. So what you want to realize is as that date approaches, it's also your job as a listing agent to go back to the bank and say, hey, you guys, we need to extend the auction date. We haven't sold yet, or we haven't closed escrow yet. They will usually keep pushing it out for you, but everything has to get approval through the bank, and this all comes in writing. So it's your job to let your client know, like, hey, if your auction date is next month and we haven't sold it by then, 99% chance we will get that extended based on the fact that we currently have the home listed, that it is on the market to sell and the short sale has been approved. Make sense?
yes.
Okay. So it's a lot of moving pieces, you guys, but it's nothing that's brain surgery. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I enjoy it because if you're a person that has empathy for others, you guys, it's a great niche to have because it's rewarding when you actually get somebody to stay in their home. And it's also rewarding to see that you were able to negotiate a short sale and have them avoid a foreclosure on their record and things like that. So it's a very rewarding niche to be in. Okay, so a lot of people don't know what is an REO manager. I've heard this too. REO is real estate owned department. In every bank, there's an REO asset manager. Their job is they're responsible for the foreclosed properties that bank has. So it's their job to manage the assets, right, that have been taken back. And you guys, the banks are not in the business of owning property. So there's usually, I'm going to be honest with you guys, there's usually a large list of foreclosed REO properties that are not on the market, that they're just holding, and they get penalized and fined by the government. So it's not cheap for a bank to hold on to these properties, but sometimes they do it to control the market. Sometimes they do it to not make their bank look bad. Sometimes they do it for different reasons. So I don't know how many of you guys were in the business back in 2008, 2009. They were controlling the amount of properties they were flowing onto the market. And it was coming in waves, and they were doing that strategically. Make sense?
Yes.
So the person that you're going to be dealing with, the cool thing about doing short sales is, guess what? You guys are already dealing with the REO asset manager department. Voila! So, but where to locate REO asset managers? I hear this too. So this is where you also put on a different hat. If you're wanting to become an REO listing agent, foreclosed, no longer pre-foreclosure, right? But let's say you really love the process, you've mastered the pre-foreclosure process, and now you're trying to understand that side of the business. You guys, the REO asset manager department is also a seller. So how you can find these things, you guys, there's a lot of ways. I'm going to share another screen, but the way that I used to do it was through Google, LinkedIn, and if you're in short sales, you're already negotiating with that department. So you've already got your foot in the door. The thing to remember is if you're going to go this route for business, you're now having to pitch yourself to the bank, the REO asset manager. And odds are, just like when you're calling sellers and trying to court in a seller, what do we know about sellers? They usually might already have an agent, yes, right? Or they know five that they're entertaining and you're a stranger to them. And odds are they're only going to give you an opportunity when they're upset with their current agent, right? Or they have too many that are coming on and they have to hire another one. So it's important to keep in mind, it's a courting process, just like if it was a regular seller. You're having to sell yourself, the value you present, how you're going to make their job easier, and why they should be working with you. It's not that hard to find asset managers. It might be hard to get them to actually pay attention to you. So that's where your consistency, your persistence, all of those things are going to be important, just like when you're prospecting an actual seller. Okay. But I wanted to show you real quick. Let me share a different screen. Let's see. I think it's this one. Sorry, that's my music. Let's see. Asset manager companies. You guys, you can literally, I love people that are resourceful. I do not want emails after this saying, how do I get a hold of an asset manager? You guys, Google YouTube teaches you everything under the stars. Google, I literally go in here and you can find REO asset managers. You can go on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, you should be. There's so many different ways. You can literally put in REO asset managers for California region or whatever it is. And the reason I'm talking about this, you guys, is because it's a huge opportunity at the moment. A lot of the agents too that maybe serviced them back in the day whenever it was a large market are not in the business anymore. So they might be entertaining hiring new agents, you guys. So let me go back to, stop sharing. Let me go back to the screen that we were on. Okay. So will REO asset managers sell directly to buyers, investors? The answer is yes. However, what I found whenever I was buying directly from banks is they don't want to deal with a buyer that's buying one property off of their inventory, off of their list. A bank will deal with an investor that's usually buying in bulk. And usually the bank will discount it bigger for that investor. They'll say, if you buy 5 properties at one time, you can get them for 30, 40 cents on the dollar, whatever it was. Back in 2008, 2009, whenever I was doing it, I was getting them for 20, 30 cents on the dollar. But they were giving me the shittiest properties and I didn't get to pick them. I didn't really care because every home sells at the right price, right? So as an investor, the bank will work directly with investors, but they won't deal with a traditional buyer. It's like, oh, I have a loan. They don't want to deal with that. They'll deal with all cash, buying in bulk, and not waste their time, basically. Okay, but the cool thing is, majority of REO properties get listed with a listing agent, and you're a licensed agent. So, on one hand, you're going to be helping these people stay in their home and teach them and educate them and walk them through the process on how to package these presentations to the bank, whether it's to modify their loan, do a bankruptcy, get an investor in there, or to do a short sale, whatever it is, okay? Or you can also, on the other hand, use your license and work with the asset managers, which you could do both. And in all honesty, if you master the short sales, you're getting your foot in with the asset managers anyways. And some people might really enjoy working with you and actually get you in the front door. Anyways, what are they looking for when considering you as an REO listing agent? You guys remember, I was dealing with REO asset managers. What I know is important to them is they want BPOs quickly. On properties they're taking back, they want a quick turnaround on a BPO, which we know as a CMA. And did you guys know, actually, there's 2 agents in the South Bay office. They're older. Oh, Jesus. Sue and Ho, are you on here? Did Ho get off? Sue and her husband, Winkle, I think is their last name. I forget. Anyways, they had been in the business forever. This was like 4 years ago. They were slow in sales and they said, Christi, we know, you know, foreclosures, you know, bank stuff. How do we do BPOs? Because did you know a bank will pay you to do a BPO? You don't even have to be a listing agent with them. They actually pay per file for agents to do BPO reports for them. Oh. So you can become a BPO report agent and you can make anywhere from $25 to $75 on each report that you're sending to a bank. If you can get into a bank doing that and show them that your evaluations are accurate, sometimes they require a drive-by, sometimes it's just online. And the bank lets you know, but it's a great way to make passive money. I used to do it in 2007. I did nothing but BPO reports all week long in between my investing. It helped me learn how to evaluate property correctly, and I was making a little bit of cash. So anyways, they want a quick turnaround, you guys, on these BPO reports. They don't want to send you a property and wait for 3-4 days later. They want it quickly. So you presenting yourself to the REO asset manager as a listing agent possibility, these are the things they're going to look for. Quick turnaround with BPO reports. You can tell them things like, we'll sell your listing 50% faster and for 10% more than an average agent in your area. You know why you can do that? Especially now that with the new seller platform that we have that we're launching out this week, you guys. If you take a property and let's say they give you an REO property to list, and let's say it's not that badly distressed, it needs maybe paint, maybe carpet, newer hardware might help, right? Like minor things. We have the concierge program now. Or what I did back in the day, is you could also tell the bank, I could do these things. And then what you do is you end up having relationships with contractors, and you guys, most contractors have lines of credit with Home Depot and other places. And what you do is you tell your contractor, look, I don't have the capital up front, but I need your help to fix up these homes. When it sells, I'm going to compensate you for the difference. And you can put a lien, you can do whatever you want to secure your money. There's a lot of contractors, you guys, that would float money just to get money, and then they don't care about getting paid 30, 60 days later, especially if you've got good relationships out there. So if they know that they can juggle a few properties with you and they're just using their line of credit, their income is going to be on the back end, a lot of people are willing to make that relationship with you. So that's a way to go about it. Just get creative with these things. So if you tell them you could sell their listing faster and for more than the average agent that they're already using, guess what? You probably can, and you should pitch it that way. Okay, and then you want to have a full, let's see, REO maintenance capabilities in-house. What this means, you guys, is they don't want to deal with the trash out. You're thinking of, okay, so keep in mind, you're dealing with foreclosures. What happens with foreclosures? People are angry. When they're angry that they've been paying on their home and they're kicked out all of a sudden, I've seen things like doors being taken, toilets being taken, all the hardware being taken, the copper being taken. They're like, fuck the bank. I'm taking all this shit that I can. That's really how homeowners are. Or they go in and they trash the house because they're so livid. They're so mad. So when you take these REO listings, you as an agent have to be able to say, I will do the clean out and I will do X, Y, and Z. And you guys, if the house is in really bad condition, you're not expected to rehab it because that's going to be an investor that comes in to do that. But if it's a home that just needs a little bit of stuff, you should, as an agent, be able to say, yeah, I can go in and paint the walls. I could do some touch up. I could do new hardware. The doors need to go. That's like $200 a door. No problem. Right? So you want to say you have a maintenance capability, which means you're going to do the clean out. You're not going to ask the bank to do that because they've been having to do it. So you're making their job easier because you're saying, I'm taking this all off your plate because my department does it. And you want to be able to throw in there, which is part of the maintenance capabilities in-house. You guys, at the end, I put negotiate cash for keys. I don't know how many of you guys have been in the business this long or how long you have been, but that's a real thing, cash for keys. Do you know a bank will say, talk to your client, or this is the homeowner, we're auctioning them next week. This is a listing that you're about to get. Go talk to them and negotiate short cash for keys. So what'll happen is when you're their listing agent, they're going to give you the list of the properties that are about to come on the market because their auction dates are coming up. And they want you to go to the door. Very dangerous, you guys.
Yeah.
And you're basically telling this person, do not destroy this house. Please do not destroy this house because you're angry. We will give you cash if you give us the keys on this day to help you move into the next house. You guys, a lot of people love it and a lot of people don't. But the odds are when you come up, it's just like repoing a car. Sometimes they come at you with guns, sometimes they're pissed, sometimes they're not, you just don't know. So your job is to negotiate cash for keys to say, hey, look, I know your auction date is coming up and we don't want you to destroy the home out of anger. If you leave peacefully, we can actually give you a $10,000 or $5,000 check on this day to help you move into your next place. Does that sound okay? If they say yes, you sign the agreement, they get the money, you get the keys. Voila, the house is not damaged. Because believe me, guys, they go and they purposely damage the house because they are livid, okay? And they're like, F the bank, they're not gonna get this house the way it was when I bought it. And they start throwing things through the walls. You guys, it is crazy. I've seen poop wiped off walls, like it is bad. Anyways, cash for keys. Let a bank know that you are willing to do cash for keys. And then let's see.
Where does the cash come from?
The bank.
Okay.
So the bank will give you the list of the properties you're about to get as a listing because it's the auction dates are coming up, right? And then they're going to tell you to negotiate certain ones. So you want to tell them that you're capable of doing that.
Okay. And
a lot of these asset managers realize that some of these agents today that they've been, because the foreclosures have been normal and a little low, listing agents haven't had to do that. So whenever it becomes a real wave is whenever it becomes a problem. So when you use the term cash for keys, an asset manager is going to go, oh, they know what they're talking about. Oh, okay, this is nice. Not every property will want it, but believe me, that asset manager and that bank is getting letters sometimes from the homeowner saying, fuck you, you're not getting the house back, I'm going to destroy it. You don't think they're going to want you to know that? Because they don't want the asset destroyed, you guys. Okay.
One thing, when you get to the door, you don't say cash for keys, you say financial relocation assistance.
Yeah.
You could really say anything you want. The cash for keys terms is what the bank uses, but you could say, look, we're willing to negotiate with you and help you to make sure that, you know, you get some kind of funds in your pocket on this day to move out. And a lot of times you guys, they need it. So it's actually a really good feeling to do it, because sometimes they don't have the money for movers. Sometimes all of the belongings get left because they don't have the money to move their stuff. That happened to me growing up all the time. My mom was always evicted, and it was always at last minute. Sheriffs showed up and we were expected to be out the door. And it was like, well, goodbye to all your stuff. My mom didn't have the option to have money to move it. So when you present the money to these people, sometimes it really relieves their needs. Okay. You want to guarantee offers in 6 months, or we buy it? Don't get scared with that, you guys. Really, you're not saying that it's going to be the offer they want. You're saying you're going to present offers, and if there's no offers on the property, you're going to buy it. And guess what? As a listing agent, you can say that, because now we also have iBuyers. It's going to be offers. They might not like the offers, but there'll be offers on the property. So with this platform that we're releasing next week, you guys are going to get trained on it. But you can present offers within 72 hours that are legit buyers that will take the property. So you want to say these things, though, so the bank sees you as an asset to them working their listings. Does that make sense? Any questions on these, you guys?
No, it's very interesting.
And it's also important for the bank to know that you can handle a large inventory, because odds are you're going to sell hundreds of units or close to hundreds of units once you become an REO listing agent. It's important for them to know that you've got all this support in your team, and you guys make it up. You can figure it out once you start getting the listings, believe me. Make it sound like you've got this large team, but also let them know you've got one point of contact. They're not going to get the ring around and have to deal with a whole bunch of people. You say, look, I have a large team backing me up. This is why you should list with me. However, you've got one point of contact. You will always be dealing with me. That's all they want. It's just like pitching to a seller, but you're switching their needs. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because an asset manager doesn't want to deal with getting trash trucks there, cleaning out properties, taking pictures of properties, trying to get it sold, figuring out which ones are worth what. They want an agent that takes care of all of it. So pitch yourself that way. It's a really cool niche to be in, you guys. And always come from a place of service and empathy. Not sympathy, empathy. You want to be relatable when you're talking to people like this. And you guys, we are relatable. None of you, Ho Chung says this all the time, none of us are untouchable from having a disaster that puts us on the street, that makes us hit rock bottom. Nobody is. So be empathetic, relatable, approachable, and realize the different hats that you're dealing with whenever you're confronting somebody that's been missing their mortgage payments, and how you can help them. And let them know that your job is to help them stay in their home. When you say that to them, the dialogue changes. And then eventually they end up self-discovering. It's kind of like coaching. Like, my job as a coach is not to tell you everything. My job is to help you self-discover, right? Ask the right questions, and then soon enough you get to the point on your own. That's really how a pre-foreclosure is, you guys. You come from a place of service, you're educating them, and you're trying to help them. And a lot of the times, more than not, they're going to get to the place where they realize, oh crap, I do have to sell. I can't keep the house, because even if I come up with this lump sum of money to get me current, my job has changed. Maybe I have no job. Maybe my savings is gone because of a medical emergency, whatever the situation is. They come to the self-discovery that they have to list their home. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so any questions on the pre-foreclosure process? You guys can ask detailed questions, I don't care. Any questions on the pre-foreclosure process, or the notice of default process, or the fact that California is a non-recourse state, options to keep somebody in a home? You guys, now is the time to ask me whatever you have on these things, or any questions on becoming an REO listing agent.
I have a question. My
Go ahead.
question is going back to the timeline that I was asking for before. It would be great if we could, just have something like jotted down in terms of what happens after that 3 months and 21 days. I understand that you're saying it really kind of depends upon the situation, but it would be great to have a general idea of after that 3 months and 21 days, what a seller that is now in default can expect in terms of a time frame when they can expect different things to potentially come about.
Well, they're going to get a lot of notices in the mail. So the frustrating part about this is, Deborah, is I feel like there's not a generic answer.
Okay.
Because usually a bank has the right to take the action to take back the asset after 180 days of somebody not making their payments, right?
Mhm. Yes.
However, what you'll notice whenever you're in this arena and you start to specialize in it is a homeowner might even get a letter from the bank saying your auction date is August 21st. And then they're in panic mode, right? And
Yeah.
then August 18th comes and then they get another notification, or sometimes it just gets changed internally and the auction date was pushed out again. And that's because they're fluctuating on the back end, all of their properties and their files and the fees that they're paying.
Got it.
So it constantly changes. There is
I
no,
understand.
but they can take full action after 180 days to take back the home.
Okay.
But it'll always be in writing. My thing is this: educate people that you're coming from a place of trying to help them, that there's
Right.
no need to feel and whenever I would send letters, you guys, I used to say this, like, look, I get it, I'm a stranger. It's one of the most personal things you can talk about with somebody. I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I simply want to help you. My job is to help you stay in your home. And I want to educate you on all of your options. Please don't wait till last minute. But as they all do, if they wait till last minute, you guys, don't panic with your client. If they call you and say, holy fuck, my auction date is tomorrow, I'm going to be out on the curb. I usually say, well, damn it, that's why I called you 4 months ago. No, you don't say that. What you say is, okay, let's explore all options. Are you willing to go down to the courthouse right now and file a bankruptcy? Yes, awesome. Go down and file bankruptcy, send it, because I'm going to send it into your lender. And that stops the action immediately, because then it derails it and it puts it through another course. So there's a lot of things that you guys just need to know to be able to help the person. But Deborah, there's really no solid timeline.
Got it. I
Really, it's
understand.
180 days allows them legally to take back the property.
Okay.
Some banks, though, don't even exercise that right. Some banks will keep pushing out the auction date and people stay in their homes. I've known for years people to stay in their home and not make a payment. And they're like, when am I going to be forced out? Hopefully you're saving money, right? I don't know when you're going to be forced out. It could be very soon, or it could not be. That's the frustrating part, I think, about this business. But if you educate yourself on the ways to stop a foreclosure, or to get creative to help somebody stay in the home but maybe not make the payments anymore, or to sell, whether they have equity or no equity, you want to be willing to do that. You guys, another thing that I didn't touch on whenever you're pitching yourself to a bank as a listing agent, most banks are going to give you a large amount of business. I'm not a fan of discounting my commission, but I will tell you this, just like when you have a seller, and let's say the seller sits with you, and Stephanie, you're probably going to understand this too. If you have a client and they're selling 4 homes through you, and you're probably also doing the buy-ins, are you not more willing to kind of take down the percentage that you're taking yourself?
Right.
And maybe not the other end, right? The buyer that comes in, you don't want to cheat the other agent, but yourself, because of you're getting it over, the quantity is there, right? So pitch yourself that way too. Say, based on your needs, I'm willing to negotiate to make sure you guys are capitalizing most on your money. And it might fluctuate listing to listing. Don't sell yourself short. If you're putting money into these properties to get them sold, you should be reimbursed. But a lot of banks also allow you to do that. If you pay out of your own pocket to do the trash out, to do paint, all of these things, maybe minor things that you didn't hire a contractor for, or cleaning service, you can submit those receipts in escrow and get reimbursed on top of your commission. So just let them know you're willing to float some things and you're willing to negotiate some things to help them capitalize as much of their money back as possible. Make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
What other questions do you have? Timeline or anything?
Christi, I was a little bit late. You mentioned something about, and it's a little off topic, but you mentioned something about we're going to have a concierge service.
Yeah, we're
Where-
working on it. I'll tell you guys right now since you guys are on here. We're working on the flyer right now, but we just purchased it last week. Rick is really excited, the owner. And we're only going to train it one time, so we're really going to push the fact that you guys have to show up. It's going to be on the 11th of this month, next week, from 12 to 2. So write that down. But we purchased, and it's basically an amazing seller platform that allows you as a listing agent to go in and dominate listing appointments. It gives them the options to sell their homes more than one way. So we'll have the concierge service, which allows us to stage their home or do minor upgrades, maybe hardware and other things, or paint, or maybe even fix some things that are truly broken. So the concierge service is going to be there. And then we'll also have a bridge option, which is really cool. You guys think about this. I don't know if you guys have been dealing with this, but not too long ago, I met somebody that called me on my listing and he's like, I want to make an offer on your home. And it put him in a really bad position in today's market. You guys will understand this. He goes, I will make an offer on your home, but it's contingent to my house selling. And I go, okay, do you have offers? Are you in escrow? And he's like, I haven't even listed it yet. Actually, I'm taking that listing tomorrow, you guys. So he goes, I haven't even listed it yet. And I said, you know, in today's market, it puts you in a really disadvantage. There's no way my seller would accept your offer with the other options that are here. So the fact that your home hasn't sold and you need that equity to buy this one. So this option as a bridge is going to allow somebody to stay in their home, use their equity, do non-contingent offers on their up leg without moving out of their house yet, right? Which is a big deal. In other words, allows them to locate their up leg before they move their home, before they're out of their current home. So it's a bridge. That's a really cool option. And then the other option was, hold on, it's the bridge, the concierge, and then the, I don't like the term, we're not going to use the term iBuyer, but it's really an iBuyer option. So you can walk in and say, if you will have to sell your home tomorrow, this is what the price would be. I can have an offer presented to you tomorrow, an actual legit buyer. It's an investor one. So usually that's going to be distressed properties. You guys are somebody that's so motivated, they have no option but to sell it at a huge discount. But the cool thing is now you as a listing agent can go in and say, hi, Mr. Seller. I have 3 different options to sell your home. These are the nets, the differences in all 3 of them. Which one fits your needs? It's no longer just let me put your house on the market and see what we get. It is, we can go traditional market and see what we get. We can do some minor things to your home to get top dollar. We can do a bridge to help you secure your up leg first. We can do all of these things. So it's not cheap, but Rick got it for our office and he believes it's truly going to help us have a competitive edge. And really, we know too, we're competing with companies like Compass that offer that to their agents in some aspect, right? So whether or not you use it, it's nice to have as the option. So whenever it presents itself, you have the ability. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to announce it today. We're creating the flyer today. I'm going to do it with Desiree. And then it's on the 11th at 12 to 2. And we won't be teaching it many times, you guys. But there will be, we have this service provider that's going to be there to help you guys and be able to utilize it. But we're training it and explaining it on the 11th. Any other questions about pre-foreclosures, REO, becoming an REO listing agent, or how to package yourself a certain way, or understanding the pre-foreclosure process? Any questions?
I have a question. You had mentioned that you were able to do BPOs for banks. Do you contact the bank directly, or would you already had, like, do you say, oh, can I do BPOs for you? Do you just? That's
exactly how it is. And Ho, I was saying, I don't think you were on Ho yet. Sue and Nick in the South Bay office, what's their last name? Whittle, or I don't remember their last name. But just like you package yourself as a listing agent to the asset manager, you're now packaging yourself as a BPO agent to the asset manager, not the listing agent, but a BPO resource. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to send you a list of properties and they're going to put a price on all of them. It's literally an Excel spreadsheet. And they're going to say $80, $25, $75. And then they're going to have a column that says drive by or virtual. In other words, sometimes they do want a picture of the outside of the house. They expect you to drive by it. and sometimes they don't. And they'll pay you a different amount on these BPO reports, and you become a BPO agent for them. And all that means is they have a fluctuation of what the property, the next wave of listings look like for them, the properties that they're taking back at auction. And they want to know what's coming. So they want to know which ones are worse, which ones look like shit outside, which ones have a current market value, which ones are they going to lose money on. They want to know these things, and they have to use a realtor for that. So basically, they see you as an appraiser without the cost of the appraiser. So they will pay you if you let them know how quick you are and how accurate you are. You can even say, give me a trial run. I'll do a week for free. And the reason I bring up Sue and Nick Ho is because I got them in the door 4 years ago. I taught them how to do that. They were struggling with sales and they needed just passive income. And you guys, you won't get rich doing this, but you can make $300, $400, $500 a week, depending on how fast you are, just on BPO reports for banks.
Pretty good.
I like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. But it's just the same way as selling yourself to a seller or to the bank as a listing agent. You have to present yourself as an actual BPO agent and say, this is why you should hire me. Actually, for the first 30, 60 days you work with me, I'll take everything at a discount to prove my service to you. Get creative, but package yourself in a way where you're delivering that to the asset managers, and you'll be surprised. Odds are eventually you're going to get a bank that says, sure, we'll give you a trial run. This is a list of the properties. This is the deadline. We want them back. And then if you can work faster than their deadlines, they'll love you. Make sense? That's going to be a good business because they're dealing with a lot of pre-foreclosures. So they're assuming, and not everybody gets foreclosed on, right? Some people do become current and they just fell behind. But they're having a large fluctuation of properties they're expecting to take back. And they want to know what to expect. They're like, okay, this loan was $1 million. Would we be able to sell it for $1 million? Or is the BPO report going to come in under $1 million? Or is this picture outside? You know, are there broken windows? Is it boarded up? Or is the grass 3 feet tall? All of these things are really important to the bank. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Do not pay for a course online that teaches you this. If you guys Google it, you'll see companies that charge, that say, oh, pay us this and we'll teach you how to get a hold of asset managers. Pay us this, we'll teach you how to be a BPO agent. Don't do it. Everything you need is at the tip of your own fingers online. Become a professional stalker, learn how to approach these people and just market them like crazy. Be consistent, just like when you're dealing with a seller. Odds of a seller working with you the first or second time you call them is very rare. What do they say the average is? By the 7th call, somebody works with you. That's the average, you guys. So if you're an agent that's prospecting with a bank and you give up on the first or second try, you're not going to get in. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, it's 11:10. If there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Was there any ahas or any good nuggets that you guys liked, or anything else you want to ask before we finish?
Thank you very much.
As a
That's great.
BPO was aha. I'm sorry. Someone want to talk.
It's okay. It's okay. All right, you guys. The market will shift, so I'm excited to be here. By the way, I'll throw this out there. Before I got licensed, I was a certified creative real estate specialist. So there are certifications you guys can do to help yourself get marketed better. There's designations to become like a short sale certified agent. You could become a creative real estate agent. And creative is important in a market that shifts. There's not one way of selling a home. Unless you've been doing it for only the last 10 years, you're pretty much in a box where you think putting it on the MLS, networking, and putting a sign up in the front yard gets the home sold. It's not going to happen that way. So anyways, all right, you guys, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you. Thanks.